All right, welcome back to the Board Drill Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kyle. Not with us tonight is Matt. Unfortunately, again, Matt's still a little under the weather. We're here with Coach Jacob Boldin, the run game coordinator, O-line coach at Cambridge High School in Milton, Georgia. Coach, welcome to the Board Drill.
Thank you. I think this is the best named podcast in the history of podcasts.
Yeah, it's amazing how, and I don't know if I've ever told the story of how we came up with it. We've told the story of how we come up with the podcast that started out with me and a different coach. We carpooled to work every day, and we were like, oh man, if we would be millionaires if we just put mics on during this. Well, we don't talk like that. I said we'd also be fired. But then we decided, after I left kind of the football realm, that I was going to start the podcast, and we're sitting talking, all three of us, Matt and me and Coach Avery, and Matt just goes, I got it. It's Board Drill. It's Board Drill Podcast. And we were like, yep, we're done. Like everyone just unanimously agreed, and we all stopped the conversation right there. So Matt came up with it. He's an O-line guy, not shocking. He still has the original napkin. He drew like a really bad logo of like two linemen facing each other on it, which we do not use. Maybe one day that'll be worth something. So anyways, long story to get to our point here. Coach, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about practice efficiency, correct?
Yes, sir. That's right. Just kind of how to maximize your time with your kids and then how to make your practice give you the best product on the field.
Yeah, it's awesome. So perfect. So if you're one of those people that listens to the podcast, actually listens to it on Spotify or Apple, you'll enjoy this episode. No presentations, no video. So you're not listening to 20 minutes of it and going, dang it, I got to go to YouTube. Straight audio tonight. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, you can still look at our beautiful faces and more so our beautiful beards, it appears like, right, Coach?
That's right. Amen. You got to make sure.
Beard game.
For sure. Absolutely.
So real quick before we get into it again, like always, if you don't follow us on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube. It's all Board Drill or Board Drill Podcast. And then also follow us or go subscribe to our website. It's www.boarddrill.com. We post all of our podcasts on the website as well as write weekly articles. So check that out if you have time. All right, Coach, practice efficiency. Let's get into it. Where are we starting?
Man, I would say the first thing that I would start with is any young coach get hooked up with a guy that's done it before you, who's had multiple jobs. There's nothing more valuable in this line of work than having a good mentor, in my opinion. So if you want to talk about efficiency, you can think you're efficient, but a guy that's been doing it for a long time is going to show you what efficiency is. So for me, that guy was Tommy Watson. He's the head coach down at Harris County. Makes things run like a machine. That's where it kind of started with me on how you should practice, what practice should look like, and how much can you get done in a small amount of time. But anybody can practice for 4 and 5 hours, but your kids are going to get disengaged. Like, how much can you get out of an hour and a half, 2 hours? So that's kind of something that picked up from him, and then I've kind of tweaked and done kind of my own things with it going on from there. So another huge thing is like find somebody to study. I talked to, every year you get to hear Kirby Smart speak at like some, coach's clinic or something like that. The man is always doing a study with his team every year. And so I was totally intrigued by that with his study that he just did on, I think they did Netflix, they did Nike one year, they did the All Blacks one year. And so I thought to myself, I was like, man, it'd be really cool to study something and see what you could get for football, something that you're just interested in. I've always been interested in samurai. So I was like, these freaking guys were elite at everything they did. What can I do to like take what they do and make it match what I do? So starting last January, I started just finding books, like what can I read on their culture, like how they do things, what they do. And so I know there are tons of coaches that always want to reference the Bruce Lee. I don't worry about the man who knows 10,000 kicks, but the guy who's done the single kick 10,000 times. And that one's used heavily, but I'm like, there's got to be more than just that. So I started reading on this guy, Miyamoto Musashi. And if you're a little bit of a nerd like I am, this guy won every duel that he was a part of, right? And in the samurai duel to the death. And he was 60-0 and then hung it up and wrote a book called The Five Rings. So anybody who's interested in reading some different stuff, read up on him. And he basically just talks about how a samurai lives, how they prepare, how they fight, martial arts, and just how you use your body and all philosophy stuff. So took a huge dive into that. Some of the bigger takeaways that I got from him is you can never fight in a battle harder than you practice, right? So for me, I was like, okay, I practice hard. So what can I take from that? Well, if your practices don't mimic game like reps, you're never going to get the game productivity that you want, right?
Yeah.
So that was a huge part for me. So another piece was just he was all about this concept called motion, which means no mind, right? So it's the concept is you don't think about anything in the heat of the battle. You react because you've seen every single scenario, every different way 100,000 times. And your body just gets into this flow to where you just react. So those things were like golden to me in this past year of studying. And I'm like, okay, how can I make my practice look like that? And so it is eliminating any gaps in any part of your practice. It is detailing in a huge schedule what all these pieces look like, right? From the second you walk onto the field to the second you get off, and then making sure that you're attacking all those goals that you set before practice. And so over preparing the planning portion and then hitting every one of those pieces as much as you can. So
now, Coach, I think that makes a lot of sense. We do these drills still, me and Matt. We're not even coaching right now. We still go through, all right, what's the perfect practice? What's this? I mean, we talk about it all the time. We're coaching no one right now. But it's something, like you said, if you go to listen to Kirby Smart talk, that dude only wants to talk about practice. He doesn't want to talk about the games. It's amazing how much he talks about practice and practice theory and what they do and all these different things. And it's just like you said, like, you know, every year we did it, we said we'd go through all of our individual drills and we just say, like, look to these match game movements. And we always try to, like you said, get as much to a game as possible in practice, because ultimately that's what we were practicing for, right? Who gives a shit if we're going slow or doing this or doing that? You know, if it doesn't match some kind of game movement, we're wasting our time. And more importantly, our players' time and energy.
For sure. And I mean, there's one thing at the end of your day is you're going to lay on your deathbed and you've run out of time. And the worst thing that I think you can do with anybody is waste their time, right? Maximizing their time. These kids deserve it. Most of them are only going to get 4 years. So, like, can you make that the best 4 years of their life? Can you make it the best experience they have? So that was a big part of how we do things. Just crunching that and rolling. So there can be a little bit of pressure on the coach too if you start planning everything out the way that you need it to be. So going into the spring, you know, I'll create a checklist of everything that I need to have completed by the spring. And the bigger that list is, means the more efficient you've got to be in your time. You know what I mean? So it's just having a very detailed plan. And it's always like reverse design, backwards design. So start with the product that you want, and then how can I build to that point before each segment of the year? So you break it down in winter workouts. What do I want at the end of winter workouts? What do I want right at the end of spring? What do I want before summer? What do I want before the season? And then planning all those things out long in advance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big piece is putting together, like you said, that 12-month schedule. But if you don't have goals and things to look forward to you're going to start throwing in filler stuff. And I've been there at that point of, coach, well, we got to do something. So what do we do? And it's like, and right, we've all been that young coach. I'll be the guy. I always pick on myself and I'm fine with it, right? I used to be that coach, like, well, we got to do something. So let's just throw this in there. Like, who gives a shit? Let's go. And it's like, no, you need to have thoughtful things that make sense, that are utilizing your time correctly, or you're wasting everyone's time. We're back to that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I can kind of go ahead and get into some of the drill stuff that we'll do. So, like, as far as drills go, if there's anything I want them to see, we're going to film, walk through, talk through. And I mean, we could get into just, what does your film session look like? Are you just running tape and talking to a wall and not making eye contact? Or is it a structured film session? Like, do you have your first 5 up and then your second 5 behind them, your third 5 behind them? And are you engaging with them? And are you talking with them? And are you asking them questions? Are you, hey, what did you think whenever he lined up like this? And you know what your responsibility is, and how did you get that done? So those are things that, like, just film. Okay. So if we're going over a new concept, I'm going to hit it in film. I'm going to show him some film of what it should look like. we're going to write out what your rules are. It shouldn't be anything drastic anyways. I mean, it should be something you do already. And then we're going to knock through any different looks that we might see that would cause problems for that, that scheme that you're putting in. So getting ahead of the film part of it makes your practice time sacred, right? So you can talk and you can attack all the mental pieces in the film session, in the meeting, but as soon as your feet touch that grass, it is straight work from there on. Like, we're not going to really talk about anything. It's going to be fast correction. It's going to be, get set for the next thing. It's always, you have a job. What are you doing right now? If you just finished, just probably get to a piece in rotation for that same drill, right? And then you're going to press somebody to get to their spot. And that's the biggest thing, man, is your team coach-led or is it player-led? I mean, coach-led teams, there's going to be a lot of standing around and listening to what the divine coach says. If it's a player-led team, I mean, hey, everybody's got a job, and they're enforcing that job on the whole group. So,
yeah, no, a lot of things you said in there that I really like. One of them is, I'm curious, real quick question. Are you guys a tempo team?
We're not. Practice is
interesting.
Extremely high tempo.
You talk like a tempo coach, though, and this is the best advice I can give everyone, because I'm with you, right? Like, this is for slowing it down and correction. Film is for slowing it down and corrections. Practice is for getting things done in quick corrections, or that person has to be pulled from the drill if the correction's longer. And I learned this method from being with an ultra hurry up coach on offense. I was the defensive coach, and I used to look at my position coaches like, look, if you got to make a long adjustment, you got to pull that kid out, because there's shit going on in the practice, and you're going to ruin everyone's reps. The offense is going to start screaming at me, everything. And so we got that. We kind of learned that from tempo, and now I've taken that just in everyday life of, this is the urgency of everything. But I learned a lot from just getting my butt kicked by a tempo guy for 3-4 years every day in practice. Like, all right, here's our adjustments. Here's how we're doing it. We got to go fast too. So I was curious, because you sound like a tempo coach, even though you're not, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in a tempo system before. I think there's value in it because, like, if you're ever in a 2-minute drill scenario and you've never gone fast, it's impossible to go fast. It's literally impossible. These guys are going to be jogging to the line slow, but if you have constantly all year long hammered, like, get set, go fast, let's move, then it's just going to be second nature to them.
Yeah, and then the second piece I liked, when you talked about the player-led stuff, and if you're a coach out there, like, the real easy way to tell is if you didn't show up to pre-practice when your kids line up and go do stuff, is what I always said. And there was one thing about 2 weeks in the season is about that point where you can kind of see it. And in pre-practice, we used to do just a line, right? We would all line up and we would get in different sets and we would do adjustments, right? And it was just like, here's the defensive call. All right, this guy motions to empty, motions to trips. What's our call adjustment? And I remember, for some reason or another, I think I had to go to like an IEP meeting or something. Teachers got to go do teacher stuff sometimes. And so I'm coming out late, and I get out on the field, and there's my senior safety. All right, you go in motion. Okay, what's the check? And he's got a young safety in there. And I was like, oh, we got a chance to be really good this year. Right. And it was something I did every day with the kids, but just because I wasn't there, they were going to do it anyways. Right. And that was the most player-led thing I ever saw. And so then I started letting him take pre-practice. And I talked to that kid and be like, hey, take I'd still sit there and watch it, but I let him direct. And it was amazing how much ownership those guys. And then another senior would come up, Coach, can I direct it? And like, sure, you can take Tuesday. I don't give a crap. Like, as long as you guys are doing it, I don't care.
Yeah, because they're all invested. I mean, if they're doing that stuff, they are invested in what you do. I mean, this is not practice efficiency at all. But,
no, I know, but we're talking. It's okay.
So that's what I was going to say. But what I'm about to tell you is like player, I'm sure he'll listen to this, a very sophisticated young man. His name's Junior Moore. Now, Junior is he's a different dude. Like, he pays attention to everything that you do, and he's going to try to find a way to, like, teach it. And so I was a JV head coach, and I was like, hey, man, one of you offensive linemen need to come be the O-line coach. He jumped in immediately. And I think maybe 1 or 2 games he didn't coach that whole year. But when I tell you, he walked them through our warm-ups, and we board drill before every game. So, and every practice.
There it is. Somebody ring a bell during the podcast and somebody says board drill. Love it.
So he'll run them through board drills, and he'll bring the same intensity that I would bring, and that kind of stuff just touches your heart as a coach to see your guys out there. What you're saying, like, go do the stuff, own it, and then run it, just like you run it. It just shows that you're a very good teacher. They know what your expectations are.
Yeah.
They know how you want things done.
And I know you said that's not efficiency, but it is though, right? Like if your kids can go through your practice, there's something efficient going on. And, so that's a piece to it.
Yeah,
I'm going to
that's
bring
true.
it back full circle here. That's a piece
That's
of
true.
efficiency, dang it.
Yes, for sure. So adding to that, he's one of the main guys who's setting up the next thing, because he knows, like, as soon as we get out from under, I call it the chicken coop. Some people call them shoots. As soon as we get done with that chicken coop period and we're going into pull drill, he's one of those guys that's running over there trying to get that set up ready to go on a sprint pace. That kind of stuff. Man, you can get a lot of stuff done if you get players pulling in the same direction.
Now, I know that you probably, obviously, everyone does different drills. They don't do the exact same thing every day. But do you guys at least go to like the same station and the same point every day where your kids know, hey, we're going over here to do something to help with that efficiency?
Yeah, so it's the boneyard. So it's back behind the goalpost. And we have 2 chutes set up, 2 chicken coops. It's a beautiful thing. That way you can get about 7 or 8 double teams set up underneath the chicken coop and go to work. So you've got that whole area that goes all the way up to the track. And so when we're done with working double teams, which any kid that's ever played for me says, done with working double teams. When we're done with working double teams, we go up and we'll work a whole pull portion. And so this is where I've kind of changed a little bit. I used to just work the pull reads and make them see things and fit things, but I was like, this really isn't game speed, and I'm not really getting game things in. Do I want them to just go blow up one of their teammates? I mean, there's part of me, yes, but then there's part of me like, that's not sustainable. How do you fix that? A lot of these guys that use these med balls, here's what's really cool. Take one of those med balls and put it right where you want there. I'm a face and shoulder guy, and then fit your hands up underneath. That's going to offend some coaches. I get it. But I'm saying put that ball right there and then have them go hit that thing as hard as they can. Both kids are safe. You've got cushion in between, but you can really bring home fitting second level guys as hard as you can, as fast as you can. And then we'll always have 2 pullers going at one time, and then we'll always be working a double team to a backer. So like you're almost getting to like half line, but again, you've got however many guys. What is that? 6 guys working.
Yeah.
And so as soon as they're out, offense go to defense sprint to your spot. And I don't even care if they take a drink of water, because we're going to go so fast. It's boom. All right. Next people set, boom. Next people set, boom. And they know how to communicate it. They know, the things that I'm going to be looking for in the cues and all of the above. And it runs like a machine for sure.
Now, is this something, you're talking about early on Indian practice? Is this something you guys do I don't even know the rules in Georgia. Do you guys kind of do like semi-practicing in the rule at Georgia? And I'm not trying to like catch anybody in anything here. In Florida, basically, like once summer hits, you can do anything as long as it's not padded. What I'm trying to get at, let me drill this down. What I'm trying to get at is, are these guys doing these drills semi-year round where it's like, look, it's ingrained in the nature of what they do?
Yeah, so that'll look a little bit different. I'm not a bad guy when it comes to the season. Hey, if any of this stuff's going to get me in trouble, just set it out. But
you got to tell me. I have no idea in Georgia, right? I don't know. So I don't know the rules over there north of the border. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm not a bad guy, because practice efficiency, when we're working those double teams, the bag doesn't fight back, right? And if you're just working it on a stationary object that you're trying to just push around, I feel like there are a lot of things that you miss. If your next guy is trying to fight and get off of that block, then now this is a real game look, right? So you can't work that piece as much as I would like to in the summer.
Correct.
We'll do some of that without pads, but yeah.
But no contact, of course, because that's against rules and things like
Totally.
that. So it's on air, all right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So look, this is my question now. Do you guys get to write a big piece of it? And this is a big Kirby thing from what I've understood. I've never heard any of them live. I've seen recordings of all of them. how much crossover do you guys do when it comes to drills like that? Because, right, if I'm a defensive guy, I love the idea of you double teaming and you guys pulling on a backer and us working fit and all that and stuff. So do you guys hit that every day? Do you hit it a couple times a week? Is there a specific drill? Do you do several drills? How do you guys work the crossover periods to get some of that high level competition?
So that's been different in different places that I've been, right? Ideally, you get it every day. Like I had a job when I was at Lambert to where I'm not being funny. I coached the O line, D line, tight ends, fullbacks. So every day was just the best on the best, right? Other places like Grayson, the D line coach, loved that kind of stuff, right? We called it point of attack. He wanted to go crawl up under the chicken coop and then like have warfare. We were a little bit lighter on the defensive line side this past year, so we would do it. I would say occasionally, not as consistently, but yeah, those are offensive guys on offensive guys, and I do break it down to our kids. Like you have kind of different levels. Like you have starters, you have backups. Sorry, you have starters, you have rotators, backups, and scout team. Right. So those are where you're at. And when we do our end of the year, like, hey, right now, your scout team, what are you doing to try to get into that backup or rotator role, and then continue to progress? So we celebrate scout team guys, and most of the time, there were some times that our scout team looks were just as good as the varsity looks because those guys were fighting so hard. So
Yeah. And you need that, right? This is every high school coach in the country, scout team makes them kind of shudder, right? Whether you're running scout team and the kid does something that's not on the card or this or that, or doesn't go hard, and you just look at him and you're like, why are you out here?
yeah, for sure. So for me, I always coach scout team. Like
Yeah.
my offensive line, I would tell them like, look, man, we filmed it, we've repped it, we've insided it. Now we're going to team. I'm throwing everything at you, and I want you to make the right call, figure it out on your own, because guess what? On Friday night, I'm not going to go stand behind you and then tell you what to do versus every look. I'm trying to create chaos. I'm trying to create hard situations. Coach, there were two in the left A gap. We can't block. So what do you do? Like, I want you to figure out solutions on the field. Y'all communicate that stuff. Then we can get it fixed in film, create solutions, and keep it moving. So I think that's a big part of practice efficiency is don't be scared to coach your scout team. I coached every rep of scout team this past year and had fun with it. Call those guys trained assassins. They buy into it and they will go to war. And I tell them like, hey, man, you're trying to blow these ones up and show them that you're supposed to be starting on defense, right? And so those guys bought into it. But it also, look, a big part to me is learn your defensive coaches, learn what they call stuff. Because the more you learn of your defense, one, it's just going to make you a better coach. Two, those kids speak that, right? And so,
Correct.
like, you can tell the entire defense, hey, I want y'all to line up and cloud or whatever you want them to line up in the backfield, right? And then get your box to your strength call and then learn your blitzes. I mean, I think that stuff is really important.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, and part of that was me being such good friends with the OC and then us carpooling to work every day. We knew everything in and out, so I could look over and just be like, they had number system on run game on offense, and I forget it now because it's years past, but hey, run this, and that was zone or outside zone. And then flip side, he knew he could be like, hey, guys run palm sky and do all that.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew exactly what he would get. I think that's a really important part, and that's learning everyone's lingo and in such an important part to the staff, because just like anything, you want to talk about efficiency. If every coach is using different language, you are not efficient. And you don't know how many times I've looked at a coach during practice, but hey, coach, we call it this. Hey, remember, coach, this is how we refer to that. And, it's not like you get mad at him or anything, but it's like, coach, like that kid just looked at you like he doesn't know who the hell you are because you just said something that he doesn't understand.
That he doesn't speak, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's even on your side of the ball. Yeah, coach, we don't even use that term. That kid has no idea what you said. And that kid, that kid being a good kid was just like, yes, sir, and walked off. And that kid was like, I don't know what the hell he just said.
Yeah, for sure. It's just fun. I mean, when they know what you're calling, they'll be like, coach, can you call storm again? Can you call rain again? Can you call shower again? And it's just, coach, can I blitz this time? Can I go? And so it's just, I like having fun, and football is fun. And I think scout team, if you allow it, can be the most boring, terrible part of football practice for those kids. You know what I mean? And but that leads me to the next point is just like, what does your team time look like? I feel like team time is also one that can get very monotonous depending on how much time consecutively you're spending. Like, are you in 4 separate 5-minute periods of team? Are you in one big 20-minute period of team? Like, what does your team stuff look like? Adam Carter did a really good job of breaking up team portions. He's the head coach down at Lowndes. Worked for him in 22 at Grayson, and he called it bandit, right? So sometimes that would be 3rd and 1. Hey, we're going to spend 5 minutes here. Can y'all get the first down? Then the next one would be coming off the goal line. The next one would be, can you punch it in? So just creating team scenarios to where it's not just, all right, guys, here's our team script. We're just going to go through everything that we do against this front and then that front and then this. And those kids lose interest pretty fast if you do that, I think.
Yeah, I think the situational stuff is super important. If you, like you said, if you just do a 20-minute period and you run down a list of everything they run, and sorry, I'm speaking defensively here if you're an offensive guy listening, but right, all right, here's all the offensive plays they're going to run. Here's the perfect blitz to everything or the perfect coverage to it, instead of just saying like, all right, here, we're going to go literally, you can give the scout team coach, I'll give them a list of, hey, we're going to go 3rd and medium. Here's all the 3rd and medium calls. You call it. And I'm going to call plays on defense like I was the DC. And so I don't know what's coming. The kids don't know what's coming. We know there's a script of like 8 plays that are coming, right? But I thought that was really good situationally because, like, look, I may put us in a bad call and the kids have to figure out a way to adjust because, look, on Friday night, believe it or not, I make bad calls sometimes, right? No coach would ever admit that, but sometimes you're like, I made a shitty call there. Like, I put us in a bad spot.
Yeah.
And it's on to the kids to overcome it. But I think them also hearing that situation over and over throughout the week on game night, I was a DC, but by the 3rd quarter, no one could hear me. My voice was gone and shot. I didn't have the ability to be like, it's 3rd and 8. Like, by then I'm like, so all I can do is signal. So I think the kids going through those situations, going through the sudden change and all this other stuff and what they like to do and experience it themselves. I'm with you. Like, I was the guy who made the call and I'm like, you guys make the adjustment. It's up to you. Like, that's football. I can't stop the game right before the ball snaps to reset the play,
That's right. And I mean, it makes your kids unify and gel. Those kids then are now playing for each other and they're not playing for themselves, and they'll do a lot for each other if they love each other. That's for sure.
Yeah, but I think, like you said, the situational stuff is super important. And if you can figure out a way to practice that super efficiently, which I think I've been able to do kind of, I've never found that perfect efficiency. And it probably doesn't exist, but I'm with you. It's like you're always striving to find that perfect balance of situational stuff.
Right. And I think, stealing a couple of things that I think you can steal throughout a practice, which kind of mimic the game a little bit, would be like PAT. Like, if you're in a team, and do you want to do it every time? No, but you can steal a PAT to just see, all right, does this guy that plays freaking defensive end, does he remember that when he hears PAT that he's got to flip and now go get at that wing position?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Onside kick, like in a game scenario, if your back's against the wall, you're trying to get back in it, which we had one of those. We came back and won this past year. If you have that situation, you're screaming or you're trying to get your onside team together, like those guys got to be ready and okay, this is important. I got to go get lined up and do what I have to do just out of the blue. So if you're in a team scenario or some scenario to where that's the farthest thing from these kids' mind, hit them with that and then see how quickly can we get everybody on the same page and get them.
Yeah, I mean, the sudden change to anything, right? I love doing that in the middle drills. Coaches talk about it all the time. And I think that's one of those things that you talk about and you do it early in the year. And then somehow, like every coach, like it fades away throughout you know how it is. Like, hey, we're going to make an emphasis of this. And it's an emphasis till week 3. And then you like go back to what you always did. Because it's hard, right? It's hard to get that into it's hard to stop in the middle of a drill and call that and reset. But like you said, I think it's part of being efficient, part of being great, of doing those little situational stuff. You see all the right, you watch all the documentaries of Saban and Belichick and all these guys, and they did stuff like this in practice. And it's like you got to figure out a way to fit it in at your level. You can't be as crazy as they were. Maybe you can. Yeah. I don't know. Probably not at the high school level though.
Yeah, there's definitely room for improvement there. Yeah, it's finding those scenarios, finding those situations. How much can you practice them? How can they blend in with what you're doing? I think that stuff is huge. And then, growing off of that piece. But so going back to because indie time. So I didn't want to just run from that piece, and I stole this from somebody, right? Because that's what people do. They steal indie time. I think you got to have a look at a little bit of everything, right? So we're not just going to work even front and just only even front that week. I think you got to see your odd front. You got to see your 3-3 stack. I think you got to see as much as you can. And that's kind of the thought that led to this. And I was like, I feel like I just kind of went over that. But so seeing all those different scenarios on special teams, I feel like you've got to see all of those scenarios every day. Because the second that you pull up to a 21 Collins Hill team that's in a 3-4 and then they shift and now they're in a 4-2, if you have not seen, if you've looked on film, which they did it all the time, so you're not getting away with it, and they've been 3-4 over the past 4 games and then they shift into a 4-2, and you haven't worked 4-2 because you're expecting 3-4, you never want to get caught like that. So, during that indie period, double teams period, I'm going to let them see every front, every time. And we're going to go like a well-oiled machine as fast as we can go. Normalize talking, and then make sure my kids are coaching them up too. If we're ever quiet, I will start calling seniors out. I'll start calling my leaders out. Why are we quiet? Why aren't we correcting? So every single place, something is being butchered and something is being done really well. Are you celebrating and correcting, or are you just sitting there quiet? If you're sitting there quiet, you're being selfish. So that part's really huge for our run game, because some of these guys they'll shift and they'll move and they'll do all those different kind of presentations. And I feel like you've got to be able to see it and understand, going back to the initial point, like the motion, like no mind, like, okay, he bumps here. Now I've worked this track so many times this week. This is easy. Just roll. Okay. I've worked this track with him being over here in a 5 this week 50 times. Let's roll. It's no different.
Yeah, and right. I think that goes back to, we talked about so much situational stuff, but there also still needs to be that basic foundation that you're building everything off of. And if you're right, your foundation is whatever, pick a play, power. You better know how to run power to tight front, how to run it to over, to under, to all these different things, to stack, to all these different things you see. And if you do that every day, like, look, I don't care if they line up in tight front and then they shift to under front, like, okay, here we go. Like, we run power. We know what we're doing. And I think that's a very good point. Just like run fits, right? Like, we know how to run fit at a tight front. We know how to run fit at an even front. It doesn't matter. So when we're in those things, it should be second nature for a linebacker to understand how to run fit and gap exchange, because he does it all the time. Absolutely. And he does it from multiple fronts, and it should be fine, right? No matter what we're doing, you understand your rules. And so
absolutely,
I think, yeah, right. Don't over specialize sometimes too. So there's that fine line of everything of, have a great foundation and then make sure you hit situational stuff. But one, too far one way or the other, right, tips that scale in a bad direction.
For sure. And I mean, I think another thing is like, your jargon matters, right? But how many calls are you having your kids memorize? And then if this guy's been making this call at left guard all year and your right tackle goes down, now he's your new right tackle, and he's only used to saying clamp and ace and deuce, and now he's out here working with a tight end, and now we've got a different call here. Sometimes I think that you can kind of unnecessarily weigh kids down with a whole bunch of different calls. These are zone combos. These are gap combos. Can we just say, hey, him? That's what we're working to. So ours was pretty simple. It was all based off of a mic call. And that's easy. Center, you line up. If they shift from a 3-4 to a 4-2, you have one word that you call, and that everybody kind of just adjusts off of one word. And I think those guys, maybe they get to the point where they're not having to communicate all that stuff because they've done it so much. You do see the ones that are trying to make calls and then the ball snapped and, I wasn't ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially with all the stemming and stuff that people like to do. Definitely got to have those things.
In your state, it's been made popular by your college. So, I mean, it's your fault. No.
For sure. So that's for us. That's a big part, is like constantly cross-training guys. When I say they get to that rotator position, I mean, you're going to go in for, if you're a tackle, you're going to work both tackles. We're going to have three. The ideal is to have three, right? You have your starting left tackle, right tackle. We're going to have a third tackle that goes in after 2 plays, and he goes in at left tackle for 2. He bumps over to right tackle for 2, comes out for 2. And so going back to the efficiency point is you're constantly developing another guy, and then everybody's striving to get to that, rotator position. Obviously, you want to be the starter, right? But you want to get to that rotator position and get reps at all of it. And so we'll do the same thing with a guard. Have another guy, 2 plays, he's out, and the next man's in, and that substitution's got to happen super fast. So I'll make him stand kind of far behind everybody so that he's got to sprint in, get set. Guys got to be set. Other guys got to sprint off. That's another thing. Like, I can't even remember what team it was, but getting caught with 12 men on the field just because they're not sprinting off the field. Like, you have to coach that. You can't jog off the field in practice and then expect them to look like Usain Bolt during the game.
Yeah, I had a 310-pound nose one year who's a freshman. I used to tell those guys, don't sub his ass if you're not going to do it quickly, because he's going to take a while to get off the field, boys.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. He's probably not breaking any combine records, I wouldn't imagine.
No, not at all. But boy, could he take on a double team.
Yeah, I'm sure
he was very good at holding the double team at the point of attack, right? And that's what we needed him to do. But
absolutely,
come third down, it's like, get off the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's why we spend so much time on double teams, is because I don't care what scheme you run. I feel like if it's a run play, I mean, it's got to be high 80%. You're working double teams almost every play. So I feel like that's got to eat up, and never just drill things just to drill things, right? It kind of goes to the weight room. So like in the weight room, if you're working a bunch of lifts just to get better at a lift, like, is that guy actually getting better at football movements, or is he just getting better at power cleaning? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So don't spend a bunch of time on drills to drill. Make everything look like a live game rep, pass pro, run game, all of it.
Yeah, and I think the biggest point with that is, like you said, it can almost be, I always sum it up with defensive backs. One year, we really didn't backpedal very much. I looked at our DBs coach and said, every day you guys are backpedaling. Why? Like, we barely backpedal in games. Like, we either played like a scooch technique, which is kind of like a step off technique, or we played shuffle. And I'm like, why are we backpedaling so much? And he's like, well, we're defensive backs. And I was like, yeah, but why? Like, it's not what we do. So
right.
it's great that our kids can pedal, but even when we play man, we press. So like, go work that technique. Like, stop pedaling.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, to me, that's the same concept as just pulling. Like, I know a lot of guys that'll just pull, and I've seen a bunch of guys with video just pull, but like when they're just pulling, so say you're working skip pulls, what are they pulling to? There's no point in a game that you're just going to pull and just run this perfect track. So why are we pulling and running a perfect track? You know what I mean? Why not pull, find a double team, get tight to it, and then fit a moving target? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to say on paper, like, hey, coach, you see my practice plans, we're working skip pulls today. Cool. Does it look like a game? Like, how are you making it look like a game scenario? Teaching linebacker techniques was a big game changer for me. Like, if you got your 2 guys flying over the top when they see pull versus one down, one over the top, and then versus 2 just down, it makes your talking on the sideline so much clearer. Have a name for those 3 things, because those are the 3 main things we see, right? And then tell them, hey, what did you see from the linebacker? This. Cool. Now we can move, just eliminating any kind of questions was always big. Like, I know exactly what I saw, and this is what I saw, and this is what we call what we saw. Now I can communicate what we saw.
Yeah, we had a coach on a couple of weeks back, and I talked to them. He's out of California, Coach Ursick, and he talked, we were just talking defense, and right, I've coached defense for years, and I got terms for everything. And then it dawned on me, like, I don't have terms, like just a one-word term for the different type of run fits we do. And he did, right? He was like, oh, these are our stack fits. This is pizza fits. This is that. And I'm like, man, that's a good idea. Yeah. Pizza fit was great. It was like, it's like, just make the guy right. So like,
right.
And he literally defined it as that he takes a piece of my pizza, I'm taking a piece of his.
Right.
And so I laughed, but that was funny, something that the kids could relate. But I was like, man, we've done this, and we're like, look, you just have to understand what we call rip is, you got a box, or hey, when we're in cover 7, which are split field coverage, right, you can spill. And it's like, he's like, no, we just look at the guy and like, hey, it's stack fits, or hey, it's pizza fits. And I'm like, man, I'm such a bad coach. I'm such a bad coach that we never taught the kids like just one terminology that you can tell them that just sets all the run fits in their mind. And now I'll never go back from that. But it's exactly what you're saying. Like, have you defined the linebacker flow? And if you have with the 3 words, now your kid can come off and just say, hey, there's spill overlap, or hey, there, whatever you want to call it. And now you immediately know, right? Because, like we're coaching, and I know that sometimes we have the sideline thing and you can see it, but sometimes the view is not the best. And the kid tells you, hey, they're doing this. Then, all right, perfect. Here's how we're going to handle that on the whiteboard. But if he can't communicate it to you, the worst thing in the world is a coach when you're under the tent. You said, what are you seeing? And they look at you and they go, and you're like, oh, shit. And
Yeah,
every coach has been there. So every coach knows what
for
I'm
sure.
talking about right now. And you're like, how do I make an adjustment to that?
For sure. And I mean, I think that goes back to your film sessions. How are those structured? And I'd be interested to hear what you say. Like, I've never been a big, I'm going to show you 50 clips guy. I'm more somewhere around top 5, whatever we need to see, and then top like 5 really good, 5 really bad. What do we need to fix out of those? So I kind of keep mine short, but I want to break it down so much that those guys now can really just repeat everything that they've learned in film and then go execute it on the field.
Yeah, Coach, I think my record's 8 clips. That's all I've ever gotten through in a normal film session.
Right.
It's, now granted, if I have like just the defensive backs or just the linebackers, we can get through a lot more clips because right, I'm only coaching one. Like, but if we got the whole defense in the room, like, oh God, maybe 4 clips. I have no idea. But like you said, I'm going to go cherry pick those 4 clips that we need to talk about. Hey, these are our 4 catastrophic errors, right? Not like, hey, Billy, I thought the spill could have been better, like head play. Like, we can get that in practice.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I think film has to be intentional. And I've always told the story. The best thing we ever did was during the off season, we had 2 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, we'll call it. Hey man, we got a 20-minute optional film session. If you're in another sport, you are not required to show up. Don't be late to practice because this. And all the other kids would show up and we pop popcorn, or we had PB&J sandwiches. Only did it for, I think, 22 minutes was the thing, because we knew that we'd like research that was like the as long as someone can pay attention or something, which our kids was probably like 12. And we would show only college film, but the things we wanted to teach. So if we were, again, if I'm just going to use something simple, if we were teaching spill against counter, we would show a bunch of, we'd show like Alabama. I know Alabama doesn't spill very much, but Clemson spilling counter, 15, 20 times in a row. Look at this technique. Look where he doesn't spill well here. And we started doing that, and our kids' football IQ went through the roof with 2 optional sessions a week for 22 minutes. And they were there, they loved it. They got free popcorn. I was at a school that was a little more socioeconomically lower on that scale. So, free food, anything like that, we got kids in the door, right? If you offered anything, they were going to be there. But that was, like you said, because we added those optional film sessions throughout the year, but they were intentional. Our kids got way better at football and understanding the game. Shocker. Guess what? We were better on defense the next year.
For sure. And I mean, that's something we've started this off season is like, we have a study session period that's in the middle of the day. And hey, if you're not doing anything for a class, like obviously go handle the class. If you're not doing anything, let's get together and just talk some ball. So I broke up 6 clips, sent it to all the offensive linemen, tight ends. And I want you to present on this topic over these 6 clips. Have some notes, have some preparation, like you're teaching me this scheme.
Yeah.
And so with, what do we have, 15, 20 kids, 20, 25 maybe, they're going to get all of our run game installed at least 4 times by their peers, like I did it too. I installed everything that we do. And then they're going to get it from their peers multiple times before we ever touch the field in spring. So, and I told them, look, this is just public speaking 101. Can you talk in front of your peers? Most kids hate talking in front of their peers, no matter what it's about. But can you practice public speaking? And I mean, because if you want to do anything successful in your life, you're going to have to public speak at some point.
the argument I had with kids when I was a teacher over that. Anyone disagrees me, I have 100 situations in your life where you have to be a good public speaker. And the first one is when you go and you ask for a raise with your boss. Maybe not public, but you better learn how to articulate and talk to someone and pitch them.
Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely.
And I used to tell kids that all the time, like, what are you going to do when you got to go pitch your boss that, well, it's not public. I'm like, it's a lot harder than you think. I'm like, you'd probably rather talk to 500 strangers than go ask your boss for more money. It's tough sometimes.
Yeah, intimate setting. Hey, I got to look you in the eyes and get this thing figured out.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm with you, Coach. I love the off-season stuff with the doing different things with the kids. And like you said, it doesn't have to be an hour-long mega session. And hey, if you're not doing anything else, we're here. And you'll find that kids will wander in your door because they just want to do football. Or shit, maybe because they just don't want to go home or they want to do something else. But who cares? If you're a great coach and you're doing what your mission is, you want to spend time with those kids anyways, right? Anytime a kid walked in and said, Coach, can we turn on the film? I was like, hell yeah, let's do this. Like, this is a blessing.
Yeah. And then if you're not doing things with them outside of, I think one of the things that separates me as a coach is my ability to build relationships with these kids. And if you're not doing that, then they're never going to run through a wall for you. I don't care how much you try to hammer it into them. Like, doing hard things is really freaking hard in football. Doing what I ask my kids to do every day is really freaking hard. And if they don't think I care about them, they're not going to do it. So,
yeah. And it's, like, and again, I'll pick on myself. Early in my career, had no concept of that. I was like, well, I'm just going to get on kids and be really hard on them because that's how my coaches were on me. And, so be it. And now I'm a much different person if I went back and coach. You can't, like you said, you got to develop relationships. There's things going on in these people's lives. Having a kid myself changed my perspective a whole lot. And I don't even have a teenager yet. I have a 3-year-old. But that's a different world, right? When you're a dad, it's a different thing. And young coaches out there, I know it's hard for you to listen to and you don't quite get it yet. You never will to your dad, but you will look at players a different way after you have kids. And that's not saying you can't be a great person if you don't, great coach if you don't have kids. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it changes your perspective. And for me, for the better, I've learned a lot of patience in the last 3 years, and I'm still not patient enough.
Yeah, I'm probably the most impatient person I know.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, I like it, man. We're at the 50-minute mark. So we always ask every question, we've kind of veered off practice efficiency. We talked a little bit about it. We veered off a little bit. I like it where we're at. But we always ask coaches the same question towards the end of the podcast. What's one unique thing or different thing that your school does that no one else does?
One thing that we do that no one else does.
Or not a lot of people do. It doesn't have to be a football thing. It can be a culture thing. It can be whatever. But everyone always has a good answer for this. But I love the pressure that we put on coaches when we ask it. It's my favorite thing.
I like it. That's a good one. What do we do? I would say...
Well, while you're thinking about it, I'll tell other coaches out there, listen, one thing we talked about doing was putting a super cut of these together at the end of the year and having 12 months worth of coaches talking about just the cool thing they do. Maybe we'll do it right before the season.
Yeah. Because I don't want to make that about me, but I think what we do as an offensive line group is extremely, extremely hard. And I think we practice harder than every team that we played. I will stand on that. We practice harder than every team that we played.
No, and if that's the unique thing, that's the unique thing. And we get different answers all over the board, Coach, and that's why we do this. I love it. There's no wrong answer to that.
Yeah, and I think that showed because I don't think there was any point in the season where my kids looked at me and were just tired. I don't think they were ever exhausted. And I think that paid off on a long run. They had never won 10 games before. We went 10-3 and those guys, I feel like we had 5 or 6 more games left in us. And
yeah.
I don't know that I've ever felt that way before, but our kids were I don't feel like they lost anything in the tank. I feel like they were physically prepared for a longer season. And I think it goes back to how you practice, honestly. So
no, I agree. I think it's the whole off season, how you practice, how you prepare the bodies, rest, all that stuff. So yeah, I agree with you. Sure. Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Good episode. And maybe in the future, we'll have you back on, talk a little O-line stuff. We'll get nitty and gritty with it. I know Matt will always appreciate that. So anytime you want to come back on and talk some O-line stuff, We
Absolutely.
have a big our O-line coaches love us, man. They
I mean, it's the title, but you're begging for
it's true.
offensive line coaches to flock to
We
you.
really, really are. And I tell the joke, this podcast has turned into a bunch of O-line coaches tell me how they pick on cornerbacks, which is what I played. So I started a podcast where everyone just makes fun of me, which is about par for the course for me. So
All right, so tell me which is worse. If we're running pin and pull, blocking you or not blocking you?
no, I mean, I look, if you leave me as a free hitter, I was going to stumble into the tackle. And I wasn't, like I wasn't how do I describe it? Like I wasn't a hard hitting guy. I was very efficient at getting run over and making the guy fall down. Is that the best way to say it? But a pulling guard out there was like, I was like, this is bullshit. Like, what are we doing? And I remember in college one time, they fooled us on a throwback screen so bad. It's the guard and tackle, and then the wide receiver has the ball, and it's just me. And I'm backpedaling, thinking, what am I going to do here? And I must have backpedaled for 20 yards before I made a decision. Like, everyone's dying like, we're winning the game, so it's fine. But coach, what I ended up doing is I said, all right, I'm just going to split him and dive at the guy's legs. And I split both the guys so quickly that they missed me because I'm a little guy. And I hit the guy in the legs and he fell down. And my DB coach was like, oh, what a great play. And he was like, oh, this and that. I was like, man, I just dove through the middle of this guy. Like, there was nothing special about what I did. It may have looked a lot more thought out than it was. And I just went, what is my easiest path here? And I was like, maybe trying to just split these guys like really quick and really low.
That's awesome.
But scariest moment of my life. Not scary. You get what I'm saying. Like when you have
Yeah,
two
for sure.
guard
600 pounds running straight at your face.
And coach, I was like $177 soaking wet as a freshman in college. I mean, not big. So not that I'm big now. You get what I'm saying. So
I love it.
Well, I love it. Well, coach, I appreciate you coming on. For all you out there listening, appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you next week.